Welcome back to the Quest for the Perfect Bracket show. Before we get into our next segment, let's throw it back to last season's March Madness. Here's how it all went down. Let's do another March Madness rewind and break down brackets from years past. Wayne, let's take a look at 2023 now. What went down this year?
Yeah, this year was just really weird. It was like nothing that was supposed to happen somehow happened. So it was the second time ever that a 16 seed beat a one with FDU topping Purdue, although that's not happened twice in the last five tournaments.
Yeah, and I, for one, had Purdue winning it all in my bracket. So this was a tough year for me. I had Arizona in the Final Four, too, which was another huge upset in the first round.
Yeah, but don't worry, you weren't the only one. So two of the top eight most picked champs were Purdue and Arizona, and they both went out in the first round. Alabama was actually number one overall seed this tournament, but it was Houston, another top seed, that was the most popular champ pick, coming in at 20.18%. Maybe some of that also because the Final Four wasn't Houston, so some sentimental pick there. But long story short, Michella, you were by far not the only one to have trouble picking this Final Four.
Well, thank you for that, Wayne. That makes me feel a little bit better. But what else happened? I know it got even more wild.
Yeah, so for the third year in a row, a 15 seed made the Sweet 16, which is pretty wild considering that happened only one time ever before this current run of Oral Roberts, St. Peter's, and Princeton. Then you throw in the fact that for the first time ever, we had zero number one seeds in Elite Eight. And it's almost like everyone kind of wanted to do a redo after that first round.
Yeah, I was one of them. And then the Final Four continued the trend, right?
Yeah, so three of the Final Four teams had never been there before, and for the first time, zero teams seeded one through three made it to the Final Four. In our bracket challenge game, only six brackets correctly had all four Final Four teams, just really, really crazy. And of the Final Four teams, three of them were picked as champions on fewer than 1% of brackets. Eventual champion UConn was picked on only about 2% of brackets as well. But they were the most popular number four seed, and they were much more popular than they were in 2014, which was last time they won as a seven seed when they were picked on only 0.23% of brackets.
So I'm guessing perfect brackets were gone pretty early this year.
Yes, we had 787 left after the first day, which was actually pretty good considering the last few years we had under 200 after the first day. But no one knew, of course, that FDU was looming on Friday. Every remaining bracket busted, all 26 of them on game 25 when FDU took down Purdue in the 16-1 upset.
All right, Wayne. So speaking of 2023, this is the perfect time to take a look at who won the men's and women's bracket challenge game last season. I don't know about you, Stats, but I just love looking at how the winners picked. And I'm usually like, how the heck did they get that right?
It is so humbling because you see these brackets and go, how did they get all these games right? You know, because everyone's so confident every year. Then you see the end results, you're like, these people are just on a different level than I'm in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so
like,
we could
how
take a
did they get
yeah.
that?
Yeah.
All
So
right,
yeah,
well,
we could
let's
start with
take a look
yeah.
at the women's bracket first. One thing that really impressed me is that picking anybody but undefeated defending national champion South Carolina seemed pretty crazy last season, but it clearly worked out for the winner.
Yeah, sometimes taking a risk, you know, a small risk, not a huge risk, can work out for you by not picking the undefeated obvious team. Maybe that's puts me on alert this year with South Carolina again. But good to hear, yeah, this bracket just it's really impressive. You know, going for four for four in the final four is I feel like in women's basketball, especially because there aren't as many upsets, we have seen 16-1 in women's, but not as many, there's no 15s, no 14s yet. So you really got to get the final four right. And you see this winning bracket did exactly that and got six of the Elite Eight. I mean, that's just so impressive. Now, in the two Elite Eight teams that this bracket missed were Stanford and Indiana, and those teams lost in the second round. So they weren't really losing a lot of points there because I'll be honest, basically everybody lost points from losing those two games so early. So that wasn't that unusual. Honestly, the really fascinating thing about this one is well, a couple things. One is absolutely nailing the UConn Ohio State game. You know, UConn had made
Hmm.
14 consecutive Final Four. It seemed like that's just what they do every year. This year, last year they got upset 3-2. But considering the stakes of it with UConn always seem to going there, even with the injuries, getting Ohio State to beat UConn is really impressive. And then going Vatek in the Final Four, getting all four Final Four games correctly. And as a note, it's kind of funny. Last year there were these upsets. We mentioned quite a few times, me among chief among them as Florida Gulf Coast picking off an upset in the first round last year against Washington State. This bracket did not do that. In fact, this bracket only picked two double-digit seeds to win just a game. And it was, Georgia was correct. So they got Georgia right. The other one was a 10 seed, which, as we've talked about by the NCAA's, official use of upset doesn't really factor into it. Usually we mean it by 11 seed difference. So getting one of two double-digit teams correct is pretty good, considering there are a lot more than actually happened, which again, just can reinforce what we talked about. Maybe talk about more is you don't need to get every single or most or all first round games correct. You can get some games wrong in the women's game and the men's game too, but it's okay. Don't stress out. You missed that 7-10 or 8-9 game. It's going to be all right. Or 5-12. I mean, that game got wrong here, but you got to hit those late 8 and Final Fours, and that's what this bracket did.
All right, well, let's take a look at the men's winning bracket. Usually, stats, the winners have to have the Final Four, the champ game, and the champion right. But I can't imagine, did anybody get the Final Four right last season?
So here's the crazy thing. Somehow, six in our bracket challenge game on the men's side got it right. Six.
That is
I know.
mind-blowing.
I know. It's that was one of the most fun stories we had to go into, because you're like, surely no one got this right. And somehow six people did. Shout out to those six. We'll see if they can do it again, because, last year's tournament was just unreal with all the upsets. No
really
one
was.
seeds, no two seeds. I mean, just truly just a crazy, crazy tournament. But they get 3 of the 4 right. And the one they missed, they had Texas in there, made the lead 8. So they almost went 4 for 4. So it kind of tells you how crazy accurate this was, especially getting San Diego State right, FAU right. UConn was kind of the 4, the most obvious answer, and even that was from the 4 seed line. So that tells you just how impressive this bracket was. They got 6 of the 8 correct on the Elite 8. So you can see here they missed Missouri and Michigan State, but the other ones were all set. I mean, truly just really remarkable to know when to pick your spots on the upsets. That's the key. Knowing what that FAU would win is impressive. They had FAU beating Purdue, so they kind of caught a break there, maybe with FDU taking out Purdue for them. But you can see right here, number 9 FAU was in the Final Four and also was the highest seed picked in the first round of this bracket. If you look at this bracket, there are 0 double-digit seeds winning in the first round, which it means they don't win ever. And look at this bracket won. So again, they took chances late, which is why they won. So I'm not saying you can't pick any upsets, but you can see they were very selective when they went with their upsets. FAU, I mentioned, making the Final Four, of course. San Diego State taking out Alabama, which was the #1 overall seed, was a big chance. Miami taking out Houston. So it doesn't mean you can't pick upsets. It's just sometimes you're lucky. You'd have to know when they're going to start kicking in, when you're going to get them right. And this one kind of just got it just perfect. Even missing that Texas instead of Miami, that's small potatoes compared to everything else they got right. This really is just an amazing. You see this and you go, oh, I get why they won now. It makes sense.
And to think the 6 brackets that had the correct Final Four didn't win.
Exactly. Yeah. That tells you, so it's knowing to know when to take chances and when to not to. Usually you have to get the Final Four teams correct. So another time didn't happen with our winner was 2018, when the Chicago made their run to the Final Four. That winning bracket didn't get that right. But usually you have to go 4 for 4. So this was kind of an outlier, but this kind of falls in line with what we've seen in past years. Usually you want to get around 50 games correct of the 63 in the bracket. And this one fell right in around that margin. That's what you kind of want to see. Try to get those 50. We've talked about it before. That's the magic number, is 50, especially getting those championship games right. You can see here, UConn over San Diego State was the big one. Getting that particular combo correct in the final is what sent them over the top.